I'm Dan Stein, president of FAIR, Federation for American Immigration Reform. Shari Rendall is here with me, who's our director of state and local outreach and handles a lot of the superintendents of FAIR's field efforts as well. Welcome, Shari.
Thanks, Dan.
Okay, you're sheriff. Your county sheriff, an important part of our nation's enforcement apparatus. These are elected officials, your sheriffs. Many of them were here in Washington. 191 came here and participated in FAIR's Feet to the Fire event last month. They participated in White House meetings, met with the president. Big part of the effort to ensure cooperative efforts between the federal and state governments on drug enforcement and, in most cases, immigration law enforcement. The sheriffs around the country who participate in the 287G cooperative program on immigration law enforcement, who want to see local law enforcement actually assist in the process of verifying immigration status or holding aliens in order to honor an ICE detainer so they can be put in removal proceedings. Those sheriffs are under attack. Those sheriffs are under attack. You should be aware of the fact that there is an effort in this country to replace those sheriffs. Now, sheriffs are locally elected. They are a vital part of the community, but FAIR is here to tell you today that there are nefarious outsiders who are funding operations to try to replace those sheriffs, and it's not a good story. In most cases, the right folks seem to be getting reelected, but here, tell us about the last week's election. Shari, what happened?
Thanks, Dan. Well, we had a couple of key sheriff races in Virginia, one in Loudoun County and one in Prince William County. And I'm just going to use Prince William County sheriff because that's one that has been very much in the news.
Prince William is just south of Washington, D.C.
Yes, it is a D.C. suburb. In this race, we saw $50,000 come into a local race from Soros PACs, and we also saw...
So we're talking about George Soros, who's not only putting money in through the Open Society Institute, through tax-exempt organizations, but also putting in PAC money. Mm-hmm. Okay. And
we saw $22,000 come from CASA in Action, which are open borders advocates, into this local race. And another troubling trend we're seeing is community or sheriffs trusting communities. And this is something that was first started, we saw it in North Carolina election last election cycle, and it was very successful down there. It took out a couple of 287G sheriffs. In fact, probably the most notable was the sheriff in Mecklenburg County, who was Democrat, who was replaced by another Democrat who said they were going to eliminate the 287G program. And that sheriff has actually released, I believe it's 500 criminal aliens over the last fiscal year back into North Carolina's communities. So
the organization is called Trust in Communities. And it's not that. It is an effort of outside funding to come in and try to replace your sheriff with somebody who will release criminal aliens and refuse to cooperate with ICE detainers and otherwise enforce the law. This is outside money going to influence your local races, and you all need to be aware of this happening all around the country.
So for this election cycle, we saw this in Prince William County, where you had Josh King challenging Sheriff Glenn Hill. And Sheriff Glenn Hill was one of two 287G sheriffs in the state of Virginia. And Josh King promised to eliminate the 287G program if he was elected. And this is really key in an area like Prince William County that has a high MS-13 gang population. And so you saw different factors coming in that sheriff's race. Right now, the unofficial results are that Sheriff Hill has won his re-election, but it was a really close race, which we're seeing the influence of those outside monetary help. And then,
so, I mean, what can be done to counteract this? In your local community, if you see a sheriff who's signed on to the 287G program, these are cooperative arrangements authorized by congressional statute and federal law where Congress has encouraged local sheriffs, local enforcement officers to sign a memorandum of understanding that they're going to verify status, hold aliens on ICE requests when there's a detainer issued. How do you spot what's going on?
I think a lot of it is looking at those sheriffs who are 287G sheriffs and providing them support on a local level. We're seeing outside influences, whether it be in Frederick, Maryland with a 287G sheriff up there, where it
Chuck
be
Jenkins.
Yes, or Virginia or North Carolina. All of these sheriffs that have this designation are being targeted by open borders advocates who want to replace them with people who are going to allow illegal immigrants to be shielded in their communities, and particularly criminal aliens. The other sheriff race that we were watching in Virginia was up in Loudoun County with Sheriff Mike Chapman. And Sheriff Mike Chapman is one that had done ads for FAIR that talked about immigration enforcement and the importance of immigration enforcement in an educational capacity. Well, he was targeted in his race up in Loudoun County for being pro-immigration enforcement. He pulled out a victory up there in Loudoun County, which has become a lot more open borders in the last several years. And so that was a big win as well. He is not 287G, but he is pro-immigration enforcement. So those were the two races, I think, that really showed a clear decision by voters to have law enforcement work with federal officials to keep their communities safe. And that's the thing that we need to get out to folks is these sheriffs want to enforce the rule of law. They want to keep you and the community safe, and we need to be able to support them and help them in their efforts and endeavors.
Yeah, this extraordinarily important idea that you want to pay attention to what's happening in these local races. You want to know if your sheriff is participating in 287G program, and if the sheriff is pro honoring ICE detainers, pro cooperating with ICE, and supports ICE. And those sheriffs need to hear from you that you support what they're doing, because there is increasing pressure, as I say, from outside money, from George Soros and these organizations he funds that are trying to overthrow these sheriffs and replace them with sheriffs who will release criminal aliens and refuse to help honor ICE detainers. And this is serious business. We've seen Governor Gavin Newsom in California commute sentences and others to help aliens avoid removal, deportation proceedings, the kind of overt manipulation, the effort to encourage illegal immigration. In fact, that's an issue before the Supreme Court now. Encouraging illegal immigration, historically, it's a felony, harboring, and that's been challenged as a misguided Ninth Circuit decision claiming that somehow it's a violation of your First Amendment rights to encourage illegal immigration. Nonsense, of course. Been part of the law for decades, years, maybe half a century. So it's very important to pay attention to what's going on. These folks are trying to take away the frontline defense of your community and make it possible for MS-13 and other gangs to operate safely within your community. Take it from me, who's somebody who lives in a county where the county council does not cooperate with federal immigration authorities, and there is a crime wave, a significant crime wave taking place in Montgomery County, Maryland, as a result of this failure to cooperate. Constantly releasing juvenile defendants who have raped and been involved in sexual crimes against juveniles, minors. The county releases them back on the street rather than honoring ICE holds. This is not a game. This is important. If you care about the safety of your community, you will research where your sheriffs stand, your local law enforcement authority position, and you will give your support, vocal support, and reinforcement to those people who are out there defending cooperation with federal immigration authorities.
Absolutely.
And to make no mistake, the effort to dismantle immigration law enforcement is taking place all across the country. We can talk about now the Michigan bill, right? There's a Michigan bill that was just introduced in the Michigan legislature. Driver's licenses to illegal aliens. It never stops. We have to be vigilant in all 50 states. So what's going on in Michigan?
So in Michigan, we have not only a driver's license bill, but also identification card bills that would give the ID or the driver's license to illegal aliens. The Democrat governor is pushing this legislation. What we're seeing is a lot of times they're advocating on behalf of these poor people who can't go to the doctor or get to work, even though they're not supposed to be working in the United States. And that's why they need these driver's licenses. But what driver's licenses actually do is they give the appearance of them being here legally and allow them to work in our communities and to violate the law. So in Michigan, we have a Republican legislature and a Democrat governor. We're hopeful that in this instance, we will be able to stop the state from implementing driver's licenses for illegal aliens. Unfortunately, we may not be as able to do that in New Jersey, which is also pushing a driver's license bill. Governor Murphy, who is the Democrat governor there, has a trifecta, meaning they control the Assembly and the Senate and the governorship. And in that case, he is pushing legislation and he wants it done by the end of this year. Now that we have elections over in New Jersey, this could be an opportunity for them to do such legislation. There has been a little bit of conflict between the Senate and House Speaker with the governor, but there is communication, and we're hopeful that our folks will get the messages out to the folks in New Jersey that driver's licenses for illegal aliens must not happen.
This is part of an ongoing effort to try to provide documents to people with no right to be in the country. This is a companion effort taking place now among most of the Democrat presidential candidates. They want to eliminate the criminal penalty for entry without inspection. So not content with giving driver's licenses to illegal aliens, disrupting immigration law enforcement, pushing a mass amnesty, they want to facilitate illegal immigration as well as have unlimited asylum seekers pouring across the border, giving them work documents while they stay here for years and effectively never go home. So all these things are part of a puzzle, and it all adds up to is immigration anarchy on the border. So you want to be aware of what's going on in Michigan. If you're in Michigan, you can get this information on our website from the Fair Take going out this week, last week? Last week's Fair Take, if you get that email. If you're not, you should be signing up to get Fair Take and get our legislative update so you can take action when it's important. And this one is important because we want to stop the Michigan driver's license bills. Sanctuary cities are a big problem right now. The president has worked hard to try to defund those cities. There are some cases, and may get to the Supreme Court out of California, that could put a real nail in the coffin of these sanctuary cities. But nevertheless, they remain a problem. They've exploded in number since President Trump came into office. And here to tell us about a couple of sanctuary hearings coming up in Massachusetts and Wisconsin, what's going on?
So in Massachusetts, we actually have a sanctuary bill. It's the SAFE Act, Safe Communities, and it is scheduled for hearing in the Joint Committee on Public Safety and Homeland Security. It's scheduled for December 2nd. In Massachusetts, we have a Democrat legislature and a Republican governor. In the past, Governor Baker, Charlie Baker, has indicated that he will veto this legislation. Up to this point, he has not made an indication on whether he will veto sanctuary bill going through right now or whether he would sign it. So we're encouraging folks to go to the hearing on December 2nd, make a presence known. The other side gets their folks out, and they get out to all of the hearings. So this is something
It's
where...
December 2nd. Where in Massachusetts?
It's in the legislature.
December 2nd, Massachusetts legislature. If you're there, Springfield, you want to go. You want to fight this. In Wisconsin?
In Wisconsin, we have an anti-sanctuary bill that has been introduced by Senator Nass.
We like this bill.
This is one that we've been pushing. We have been working with sheriffs in Wisconsin. In fact, we have 3 that are willing to go to the hearing and testify on behalf of the legislation. He reached out to us to let us know that he is hoping that the hearing will be anytime from now until mid-December. And it will be before the Committee on Labor and Regulatory Reform. Want to once again encourage our members to call their legislators in the state and urge them to support this legislation. In Wisconsin, we have the exact opposite of Massachusetts, where we have a Republican legislature and a Democrat governor. So this is one where we're hoping that we can get some movement on this bill this year.
But there's no date for that set.
There is not a definitive date. It is anticipated that it will be done before the holidays in December.
So there you have it. This is a good bill in Wisconsin. We want to support it. We had a big victory earlier this year in Florida, repealing these so-called sanctuary laws, improving federal-state cooperation. This is important to defend the men and women who work for ICE, Immigration Customs Enforcement. Protects their lives, protects the lives of the American people, protects the lives in your community. These local battles, sometimes they might seem a little granular to you around the country, but this is what FAIR is doing. We work on the national level, on the federal legislature, we work in the courts through Immigration Reform Law Institute, the national media, but we also work at the granular and local level. Small communities, state and local legislatures, referenda initiatives. And Shari has just given you a small sample of the kind of things that we do at the state and local level. And you can get involved wherever you are in the country. You go to fairus.org, fairus.org. Sign up and you will get all the information you need to get the latest on what's happening, as well as the requests for you to participate, to go to hearings, to write letters, to be involved. There are action opportunities at the local level, and of course there are always action opportunities at the federal level, as well as giving your important support for those elements of the Trump administration immigration initiatives that are in the national interest, of which the vast majority are. And so there's no excuse for you not going right to our webpage today and signing up, and getting our alerts, and joining hundreds of thousands of Americans, millions of Americans on all our social media platforms who support the work of the Federation for American Immigration Reform and the great job that Shari and her team do all across the country. Thanks for joining me, Shari.
Thanks, Dan.
I'm Dan Stein, and we'll see you again soon.